use something called Genogram. Okay, and so we'll learn all about that today and how that's going to be helpful for us in our healing. I'll read first. The genogram is one of the most helpful tools a person can use to understand the dynamics of his or her family system. It is a sort of expanded family tree that charts the relational and emotional aspects of a family across several generations. So later I'm going to show you right after this slide what it looks like, but just imagine like a family tree. Okay, but you're adding in two important things, which is what is the relationship like, and also what are some of the emotional aspects to the relationship. Okay, those are going to be very important. So it includes the kind of information that a typical family tree would contain: names, birthday, etc. But it also includes brief descriptions of family members, their particular strengths and weaknesses, aspects of their lives that can have a continuing effects through the years, as well as the types of relationships each had with other members of the family. It is put together in a way that makes it possible to identify principles and patterns that have been at work. Okay, so once again, I'll show you guys what it looks like. And then I'm going to give you also an example from the Bible as well of a genogram. Okay, genogram. All right, Esther, if you could read this one.
As the understanding increases, so does the potential for change. It is nearly impossible to change something we do not understand. But once we can recognize where problems and weaknesses lie, the potential for changing them becomes available to us.
Does that make sense to you guys? Okay. So by doing this, okay, and by seeing the dynamics and the roles that family members take on, then you're able to see, oh, I see some patterns. Oh, I see that I thought we were close, but actually our relationship is not as close as I thought. Hold on real quick. Kuruma, hello, Papa. Kuruma. Hey, Papa. Hello. Hello. Okay, Kurumi's like, not interested. Okay, bye Gurumi. Bye Gurumi. Guruma. Okay. Okay, sorry. Okay, so again, once you understand that, then there's actually potential for change. I'll give you an illustration of this. Let's go to number 3 though. Adam, if you could go to this one. Okay. So think of it like this. Imagine like something was wrong with my body. Okay? Like I was feeling some effects. I wasn't feeling good. Okay? What would I do? What do you guys usually do? Let's say you like, not like just like a cough, but like you feel really, really bad. Like you don't really feel good at all. What would you do? You go to most likely a doctor. Okay? Okay, let's say you go to the doctor and the doctor's like, okay, I think you have this as this, and just gives you medicine. And, I mean, she might be or he might be right, but a better thing to do is to actually get some testing done. Does that make sense? To see what the real problem is. Of course, they can make mistakes and all that stuff, but that's the whole idea of this as well. Okay, is the reason why we're doing genogram is for you to really diagnose what are some of the problems that you might have from your family. Does that make sense? Okay, so you don't just say, oh, I just want to forgive my dad, or I just want to forgive my mom. For what? Do you know what it is? Okay, so basically by doing this, you're getting a diagnosis of what might be some of the problems that again, some of these things you might know already what the problem is, and some of these things you might not know at all. It might be hidden. Okay, but by doing this, it really shows you the diagnosis. Then, after the diagnosis, then we can get to the healing part. Does that make sense? Okay, so again, we're trying to identify what is the hurt, what is the wound. Then we can get to the healing part. We can get to the solution. But if we just say, oh, I just need to forgive them, or oh, I just need to go to Jesus, which is true, but that's too vague. Okay, we need to do deep work. All right. Any questions so far? By the way, if you do have questions, just stop me. This is what a genogram looks like. Okay. So this is kind of like the table. So male is a square, female is round. Okay. X means they are dead. Okay, they passed away. So line like this, marriage, divorce. I'm gonna give you all of this stuff so you guys are actually able to do it yourself. Okay. So again, this is not a complete genogram. There's a lot more stuff. Okay, it could be as complicated as it could be. All right, but I'm just showing you at least what it looks like. All right. So here it just kind of shows you their characteristics. Okay, and it also shows you kind of right here. You see this? This is kind of like what kind of role they took in the family. Okay, so Karen was a fixer. She always felt like she needed to fix things in her family. Sharon, she always felt like she was a scapegoat. Okay. And then Rich, the joker. Okay, so again, in each family, there's some certain kind of roles that we all take because of maybe the dysfunction or some of the brokenness that we do see. Okay, so again, this is what you guys are actually going to work on. All right, and I'm going to give you all the steps that is needed to actually do this. Just letting you know, it's going to take time. But if you don't do this well, then going forward is going to be very difficult. Does that make sense? So it's like you coming to me and saying, I have problems, I have family problems. It's like, okay, go get an x-ray or go get an MRI. It's like, oh, I don't want to. And it's like, I can't help you, dude. Does that make sense? So that's the difficult thing, is that you just, whereas like x-ray, you just have to get it done and then it gets x-ray. But this, you actually have to take time to get, do the x-ray yourself and do all of this. We're going to do up to 2 generations. Okay, so it's going to be your parents and then your grandparents. Obviously, the more you do it, as in like if you want to do even like extended family, right? You want to do like your parents, like sisters and brothers and cousins and all that stuff, then obviously it's going to take a lot more time. But again, the more information you have, it's actually going to show you more stuff. Okay? Sorry, my baby is crawling these days, and so he's outside the door. Okay. All right, let's go into what you guys are gonna, while you guys are doing this, these are some of the things that you guys are gonna be looking for and what some of these things are gonna show, okay? And this is how genogram, it's gonna be really, really powerful, okay? We're gonna see some of the dynamics. Jeremy, if you could read this one for us.
Now, let's look at some of the family dynamics that can be clarified through the use of the genogram. The first dynamic identified with the genogram is that of roles and how they are played out. A role is simply any fixed pattern of relating that forces us into set actions, behaviors, and events. When roles work like this, they dehumanize us. People do not relate to us as full, free human beings with individual dignity and free will, but only in terms of our role. We are treated not as Dave or Jean, but as the black sheep, the scapegoat, the kid brother, and so on.
Does that make sense? So once again, I talked about this previously. Like I said right here in this one, we all have certain roles in our family. And so that's why some of you guys might have moved away from your parents, and you guys have, might react to your friends or your spouse or something like that differently. But when you go home, it seems like you go right back into your role without even knowing it. Okay, why? It's because, again, all of us, whether for good or bad, mostly it's not good, we have certain roles that we take on when we're in our family. Okay, so for me, whenever my parents come, I always shift into a certain role. Why? Because within that family setting, okay, I have certain things that I always do. Okay, so again, those are things that we have to recognize. Okay. By the way, this is going to be very helpful for people who are married. It's much easier because, like for example, when my parents come, my wife sees me doing certain things that I normally don't do, and she goes, "Whenever your mom comes, whenever your dad comes, you always act like this, or you don't do this." Why? Because again, I don't even think about it. Those roles just come up. So that's very helpful because I don't recognize it myself. But if there's somebody to actually see that, oh, you're acting differently, or you're weird, or you act like this when you're with mom and dad. Again, that gives you perspective and to see, oh, what kind of role do I take? Does that make sense? So again, that's one of those things as you guys are doing your genogram, you're able to actually identify what kind of relationship, what kind of role do I have when I am with my family. All right. Let's go to number 2. Nicole?
Every family system operates according to a set of rules. Rules may be spoken or unspoken. Nevertheless, they exist and they affect our family's activities and behaviors. Even without saying a word, our family lets us know what is and is not acceptable, how various circumstances are to be assessed and responded to, and how different individuals ought to act and react in different situations.
Okay. So if you ever use the word phrase like, oh, our family always, or oh, our family never, those are the set of rules. And again, some of these, it might be spoken, and some of them might be unspoken. And some of them you guys are aware of, and some of those things you might not even be aware of it. Okay? But everybody in the family knows whether it's spoken, unspoken, aware, or unaware. Okay, here are some of the examples. Ashley? Okay. So again, these are the set of rules. Okay, these are the set of rules when we communicate. These are some of the things we can say, some of the things we don't say. You don't talk about those things in our family. Okay, emotions. Is it okay to convey certain emotions or not? Do you see that? So there's a lot of different things. We don't talk about, we don't go, okay, today's rule. Oh, remember, no, nobody does this because again, the family, that's how we grew up. Okay, so because of that, we don't even think about it. So again, by doing the genogram, it actually forces you to think about these things. Okay, let's keep going. Some of the unwritten rules. Stephen.
Children who grow up in dysfunctional families quickly learn the unwritten, unspoken rules of the household. Here are some that are especially common. A. We don't feel. We keep our emotions guarded, especially anger, though often there is one person who is allowed to express feelings openly, especially anger. B. We are always in control. We don't show weakness
Okay, so again, just more examples of some of these unwritten rules. Okay, this is how we behave. This is how our family does things. Continue on. Danielle. Hmm. Okay. So once again, these are things that you got to think about. Okay, because you might have thought this is just a me thing. I have some problem, but it might be because that was actually a family thing. So it's not just you. So that means you were taught from a young age to behave or act a very certain way. And so because of that, that's why it's hard for you to break out of this, because that's how your family operated. Does that make sense? Right? So again, if you are able to recognize some of these things, then again, you're able to move on if it's negative. Okay, so again, these are these things that genogram is going to show. Chuyan, if you could read number 3 for us.
Another important family dynamic revealed by the genogram is the recurring patterns. These are personal characteristics or relationship dynamics that get repeated generation after generation within a family. Alcoholism and codependency are common recurring patterns. In part, this is because alcohol appears to have a biological component that is passed along through our genes,
Hmm.
but it also reflects attitudinal and behavioral patterns that increase our vulnerability to becoming alcoholic or gravitating to alcoholics as friends and even spouses. Adultery, desertion, abuse, and divorce are all patterns of behavior that sometimes seem to be handed down, and these can be spotted using the genogram.
Okay. So do you see that as well? So again, you go, this is just a me thing. But again, maybe you map it out and you go, oh shoot, oh, like imagine if I have some like depression, right? But oh, I talked to my parents. Oh, my dad had it too. Oh, my grandparents had it too. Then you go, oh, this is something that has been in our family. Okay, so again, you start to see some patterns. I had a friend. She had some mental disorder, and then she didn't realize it. But as she was talking to her family about what after it happened to her, then she started to see, oh, actually, my parents at one point when they were younger had this kind of issue as well. Right. So again, whether that was passed down or whether like alcohol, right? So we talked about how alcoholism can be biologically just passed down through our genes, but also because you became so used to people who are alcoholics, you also tend to be drawn towards people who are also alcoholics as well. Why? Because that's who you grew up with. So that's who you're comfortable with. Does that make sense? Okay. So that's why, again, family dynamic, it's going to be important. Because how we grew up, who our parents were, or how our parents were, even how they were raised, those things are all going to be passed down. Okay. All right. Any questions? Yeah.
How applicable is this to groups other than family?
What do you mean?
For example, like friend groups, church group, even like work groups. I feel like the rolled ones specifically, I feel like there are always people that fill certain roles,
Hmm.
maybe not positions, but anything else to that?
No, I think yeah, that's a very good yeah, that's a very good question. Yeah. So I don't know, and the book doesn't specifically talk about it. I definitely do think our peers do affect us, but I don't think as much as our parents though. Yeah, but I definitely do. Yeah, I definitely think it could be helpful If you look at some of your dynamics of your maybe even like very, very important friendships, I think that would help. Very good question. All right. Question? Go for it. Oh. Hmm. No, it definitely could be. Yeah. 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 Oh, yeah. That's a great, yeah, that's a great way of looking at it as well. To not just see the behavior, but the reason behind the behavior, and to see if, yeah, that's also great. Yeah, that's also definitely a possibility. Because like if it like you said, Danielle, if that was like the way they escaped, then you most likely, not you, but anybody who sees that that's how they escaped or that's how they relieve their stress, most likely you're going to learn from that as well. Yeah. Yeah. Mm, that's true. Yeah. That's great. Great thought. All right. Let's actually go to building your own genogram. Lone, if you could read this. Yeah. So there's just the caution, just because some people like they try to get way too much information. Okay. So again, way too much information is okay, but you can't document everything on the genogram. Genogram. Okay. So maybe you could just put it as your note, but yeah, just make sure you don't get lost in the information. Okay. All right. Let's go to B. How would I pronounce Kahadiha? Khadija. I knew that. Hi, Khadija. Can you read B for us? Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So there's a lot of different apps out there. When I did it on paper, but again, it's up to you. However you want to do it. Okay. And even if you mess up the first time, just it's okay. You could just do it again. Okay. Because some of us like I want to make it like perfect. Cause so like yeah, it gets yeah. Some people they get too like they want to make it pretty, like they want to make it look like this. But again, when you're doing it on pen, it doesn't look this pretty. Okay. But anyways, regardless, there's different apps out there. There's a lot of different things. So use that to your advantage if you don't like pen and pencil. All right. Back to Esther.
Once you have finished constructing your genogram, your task is to sit back, look at the information it presents, and reflect on any pattern it reveals. What about significant relationship disruptions, such as divorce? Is there a trail of chaotic or unmeshed families, or of some of the other types of dysfunctional families? Do certain types of personal problems repeat themselves, alcoholism or other addictions, emotional breakdowns, and so forth?
Yeah. So basically, number 3 is just basically what we went over, which is look at the different dynamics. Okay, which was the unwritten rules, the roles. What else? There was one more. Oh, and then the patterns that you see. Okay, so get information, all the information you can, start working on the genogram, and then start to see, okay, what's the patterns behind this. Okay. All right, I'm going to give you really quickly example from the Bible, and then we'll finish, okay, of a genogram in the Bible. Example from the Bible. To begin with, Abraham and his wife Sarah have been unsuccessfully trying to have children for many years. In desperation, Sarah finally suggested Abraham take her maidservant Hagar and have a child with her. A son is born, Ishmael. In those days, everything that belonged to a maidservant was considered property of her mistress. Thus, Ishmael was considered Sarah's son. Jeremy?
The result of this was very similar to what happens in an affair. Sarah and Hagar are at war with each other, so much so that twice Hagar runs away, once before Ishmael was born and once again after he was born. And Abraham withdraws from the conflict, not wanting to add anything to what Sarah is already experiencing.
Okay. Ashley? Okay, Stephen?
Here we see the first instance of a pattern that will repeat itself in ensuing generations. The parents play favorites. In this case, they agreed together on who the favorite is, Isaac. Ishmael is rejected. First, he is rejected emotionally by Sarah, and then literally by both Sarah and Abraham.
Okay, so here's a genogram of them. So again, this is Abraham. He marries Hagar and then has a kid, Ishmael. And then later, Abraham has a kid with his real wife, which is Isaac. And then again, when we see this, we see that there's some problems. But the first pattern that we see is that the parent, they favor one child over the other. They literally kick the other child out because they feel like, oh, he's not going to get the love. Does that make sense? Okay, so we're going to continue to see this. All right, let's look at the next generation, Danielle. Okay, so again, there was favoritism that happened, and then he saw his own, it was half brother, but it was one of his brothers literally getting kicked off the family because of this favoritism. But we're going to see the same thing happening. All right, Adam.
Isaac begins to favor Esau. Rebecca favors Jacob. Did Isaac recognize the unhealthy dynamic that was developing in his family? Did he see it as a repetition of the dynamic he himself had experienced growing up? Did he and Rebecca ever talk about it? We do not know. In any case, the favoritism splits the family right down the middle.
Okay, so again, we see this sense of, this is my favorite kid. This continues to get passed down. Let's go to the next one, Nicole.
Now let's build the genogram for Jacob. Jacob's marital history is a bit complicated. He sets out to marry his beloved Rachel, but he is duped by his uncle into marrying Leah instead. He angrily confronts his uncle, who tells him to wait a week and allows him to marry Rachel as well. He now has two wives, each of whom has a maidservant, and Jacob has children by all four of them.
Okay, so basically Jacob now, remember, he wasn't favored by his dad, but he was favored by his mom, and he has 12 kids. So let's see what happens again. Chuyan?
Again, the pattern of favoritism
Okay, so do you guys see that? Okay, so this just keeps going and going and going and going. So again, when we see it like this, when we see the genogram, when we see our family tree, then we're able to identify, oh, this is something that's continuing, have been playing a negative effect in our family. Okay, there's a couple more patterns. Did you guys, I know some of you guys are familiar with these stories. Do you guys know any other patterns within, from Abraham to Isaac to Jacob to Joseph? Do you know any other dynamics? Or do you guys see any or recognize any that you guys saw?
Maidservants,
Okay, what about it?
they're impatient, and they don't trust God's promises, so they just go to maidservants.
Okay. So we see that with Abraham. It does skip Isaac. Okay. But then it does show up. That's another thing. That these patterns, it sometimes skips. Okay, but we do see it with Jacob. But all three actually families had a difficult time with having a baby. All three families actually. Okay, but Isaac, they're the only ones who didn't have a maidservant. But yeah, very good. All right, let's look at a couple more patterns. Lone, if you could read this for us.
Do you see the patterns that have reproduced themselves from one generation to the next? For example, in each generation, one of the sons has had to leave the family.
Hmm.
Abraham's son Ishmael was forced out by Sarah's jealousy. Isaac's son Jacob had to leave out of fear for his life. His brother Esau swore to kill him after Jacob enabled Esau out of his birthright. Jacob's son Joseph was forced to leave because of the jealousy of his brothers, who sold him into slavery.
Okay, so again, another pattern that occurs when you see the family dynamic. Again, for this, the reasons are different of why they left. But again, we see these dynamic that occurs. Let's look at the next one. Khadijah.
Yeah. Each generation also displays a split of some sort between marriage partners that creates an alignment across the generations. Abraham aligns with Isaac against Ishmael. Isaac sides with Esau against Rebekah and Jacob. Jacob aligns himself with Joseph against all his other sons. Can you see how each generation has experienced problems that had their roots in the family dynamics of prior generations? This is a very common occurrence and one of the genogram helps us see very clearly.
Okay. Last one. There is an earlier pattern in Abraham's family that ended with Isaac. Twice, Abraham lied about Sarah, saying that she was his sister. And each time, it led to a serious consequence for Pharaoh and for King Abimelech. Once, Isaac does the same thing, lies by saying that Rebekah is his sister. Then King Abimelech sees Isaac caressing Rebekah and confronts him and his lie. This pattern ends with Isaac. There is no mention that Jacob did anything similar. Okay, but I mean, Jacob was the master of liars. So again, this kind of stuff, you see that it gets passed down. Okay. So again, these are the things that you guys are looking for. This is the reason why you need to do the genogram. Again, it's going to take time. But the more you actually invest time into it, the better you are able to diagnose. And the better you are able to diagnose, the better you're able to heal from maybe some of the things that you already know that you have problems with, maybe with your parents. And some things that you go, oh yeah, our family's fine. But as you're doing this, you go, oh man, some of these deep-rooted problems that I really have, it didn't start out of a vacuum. It didn't just start with me, but this was something that was ongoing. Okay. Let me just say two things before we go into our final review, and then we will finish. The first one is that we have to see that Jesus is going to give us the strength to go in deeper. Okay. For some of you guys, even just talking about family stuff, it's going to be very, very difficult. Or maybe you feel like it's like scratching like a scab that you don't want to like touch. Like you don't want to go in more. Like you go, yeah, I know I have a problem. I don't want to look at it again. But again, Genogram, it's going to make you actually go deeper. But remember, okay, Jesus is going to give you the strength to actually go deeper. Remember how we talked about you need to form a security before you actually go explore? So you have to find your security, okay, in God. To know that, hey, with God, I can actually do this. God is going to give me the courage that is needed to tackle some of these past baggages or past things that I don't want to look at. Okay, but God can really give me the strength. So even if I fail, even if I drown, I know that my foundation, okay, I have a good foundation, which is God. Okay, there's this unconditional love that I have with Him. That's going to be very important. Okay? All right, and the second one is Jesus is going to give you hope even in the darkness. Okay, which is again very, very important. Because again, looking back on some of these things, you're going to feel like this is way too much. Like I can't handle this. Or maybe you might see some of the patterns that might be happening and you go, "Oh, you see this is DNA. What can I do?" Okay, my dad had this problem, my grandpa had this problem. Of course I'm going to have this problem. And you're going to feel like I can't do anything. But this is the hope, right? Is that with Jesus, that there will be healing. There will always be healing with Jesus. Okay, it might not be as fast as you want it, but there's always hope in the darkness. Okay, Jesus is the ultimate light for us. So again, this is very, very important for you guys to really recognize this before going on this journey. Because it's going to be easy when things get it gets a little sensitive, or maybe you guys are talking to your parents about it, getting some of this information, and then some of the negative, past stuff that you didn't think about start to arise. It's going to be easy to quit, or it's going to be easy to just, not go forward. But to know that it's going to end well with Jesus. And also it helps that all of us were on this journey together, that you're really not alone. Okay. Let's go into our review questions, and then we'll finish. Number 1, what are the 3 reasons for doing Genogram? What are the 3 reasons for doing Genogram? Okay, to see the patterns. What else? So we get more information. And then what's step 2? Potential for change, okay? Because recognition of the problem is going to give us potential of change. And then number 3, is going to be, it's going to be able to heal, which is going to be through forgiveness. And again, some of you guys, you don't even want to go there yet, and that's fine. It's okay. It makes sense. But again, it's going to be forgiveness. That's going to be the deepest healing. But again, our goal is to heal. All right, very good. What are the dynamics that we need to look for? There's 3 things that we need to look for. What are the 3 dynamics? Of course, there could be more. But what are the specific 3 dynamics that we need to look out for while building our genogram? Okay, strength and weaknesses of our family. Of each family members. Go ahead, Jeremy. The roles, good. Okay, what are some of the roles that we have taken on? Okay, how do we function within the family? Okay, what was number 2?
Identifies the set of rules.
Set of rules. Very good. Very good. Yeah, set of rules. And some of these, again, it could be spoken, unspoken, written, unwritten, aware, unaware. But what are some of the rules in my family? Very good. And then number 3? Number 3?
Number 1 was role.
Roles. Different roles that we take on.
Strength and weaknesses was not one of them.
It's not technically one of them, but
Oh,
I mean that is part of it.
okay.
Yeah, that's what you're actually doing for Genogram rather than the dynamic. That's not really a dynamic. That's more of what you're actually doing for your Genogram. Yeah. Okay, so dynamic number 1, roles. Number 2, set of rules. And number 3, we just did it with Abraham and Isaac, the patterns. The patterns. Okay, what are some of the patterns that we see over and over and over within our family relationship dynamics? Okay. What resonated with you from the study? We'll share this and then we'll end. What resonated with you from this study?
I actually have a quick question. So, like the set of rules about my family, like where in the genogram tree do I write that? Do I write it in the area of family or?
Yeah, so you can write it. You don't have to write actually these things down in the genogram. You could just write it on the piece of paper. Yeah. Very good question. Yeah, the dynamics. Some of these things you could write it down using arrows when you're doing. I'll show you. I'll send you the information. But most of the things that you guys are going to actually look for, you're going to actually write it down on another piece of paper somewhere. Yeah.
I also have a question. I don't know if it's really related to, I guess, our study, but when you mentioned that there was always someone that was kicked out of the family,
Mm.
do you think there's a reason that the Bible specifically follows the ones that are kicked out? I guess, oh no, they follow the ones that are favored. They follow the ones that are favored. So it follows Isaac, and it follows Jacob, and it follows this one.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. Could be. But I mean, technically, Jacob wasn't favored by his dad. He was favored by his mom. He wasn't favored by his dad. So, yeah, I mean, there could be something there. Yeah, that's a good question. I don't know.
Yeah, I think for me, the part that resonated me today, I think this is really good that I had not been really thinking about. I could already see some of the patterns from my parents. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to it.
Very good. Ashley, how about for you?